And I'm telling you that it's working, man, heavily. Bro, I will make a video about this, but I'm using a bit of Primobolan now, bro. Yeah. And it's just crazy how these supplements for the muscles are working, but I have to make a full video on this, did you understand? Because these supplements are really crazy working, man.
What's up guys, Derek, MorePlates.com. Today we're going to be talking about Joesthetics 2 surgery shape versus current shape. You can see this post he made yesterday, or I guess whenever this video gets up, maybe not yesterday, but you know, as of recording yesterday. And fucking astronomical difference, dude. The guy went from soft and fluffy to chiseled out of stone, aesthetic as hell. All in a matter of realistically like 2 months. Like, he had his injury back in what was it, let's go to his page here, all the way down to going in the surgery room. I believe it was back in July where he tore the bicep, and then shortly thereafter he decided to get gyno surgery as well, because why not, you know? Let's see, July 6th. He's been very, very prone to estrogenic side effects his entire, exposure to anabolics. He's always had to deal with using exorbitant amounts of aromatase inhibitors in order to keep his gynecomastia at bay, which is obviously terrible for you long term. And he was fully aware of that, so he took a very, very smart stance and decided to get the glands removed entirely, which was honestly like a blessing in disguise in my opinion. We talked about this on my podcast that we had with him recently, where he literally had his estrogen crushed to undetectable levels, essentially perpetually, because if he let it climb up at all, it would start to give his gyno, start to get sensitive, and then he would crush it again with Arimidex, and he would keep his estrogen like single digit all the way down to undetectable long term, to a point where I wouldn't be surprised, and he speculates this too, that it may have led to his bicep tear, or at least been a compounding factor on top. It certainly didn't fucking help. So to me, this could be a blessing in disguise after all, because long term that would have fucked up his heart bad. Constantly inhibiting aromatase is going to be one of the most cardiotoxic things you could be doing, as well as neurotoxic, as well as so many different things in your, like, the amount of depression you would get even just from being deprived of estrogen your entire life would be fucking insane. Your mood would never be as good as it could be. You would always be in a state of like dysregulated, just fucking emotional instability. It would just be terrible. Not to mention the fact that you'd be literally fucking dumber by the day. You'd be like killing your brain, your heart, your organs, as well as hindering muscle growth. Estrogen mediates a significant amount of hypertrophy, and shutting that shit down is going to hinder fat loss and muscle growth, believe it or not, as well as, downstream cascades to other kind of processes in the body that interplay with satellite cell proliferation and other things that will help hypertrophy down the line and lean muscle accrual. So anyways, he ends up getting the gyno removed, has the surgery on his bicep, and he gets out of shape, as you would expect for a guy who is not able to train, not able to really do anything. His diet's going to be a little bit, more lax, presumably. And just, eating enough to recover, but not training like at all, really. And he soon gets to this, he has this soft look. All of a sudden he doesn't really look like his traditional shredded, aesthetic goddamn specimen of a fucking sauce fiend perpetually like he usually does. Rather, he looks like a bit of a doughy, normal guy with some muscle on him. But it doesn't take him that long to get back to fucking Greek god slice fest status. Dry as hell, grain train city, buddy. This guy looks absolutely insane. And how would you do this in 2 months? A lot of people would think this guy probably sauced his fucking mind out in order to get back here. And he actually posted an Instagram story recently discussing his progress and kind of what he's doing right now. And I thought it was interesting, worth touching on, because he talks about, we talk about in my podcast about his dose of TRT being pushed into like not TRT levels, essentially. They go upwards of what would definitely be considered super physiological. And he did that for even during his recovery phase, where he was like, again, the gear does not necessarily equate to you having this shape. A lot of that is going to be dictated by diet, as well as perhaps, compound selection too. But ultimately, if you're not eating properly or training, even if you push your test up to, 250, 300 or whatever it is, like, you're still gonna lose your shape, which is what happened to him. He still had his test up for the recovery enhancement and whatnot. And he was on a myriad of growth factors and peptides too to enhance his recovery as well. But now, is he pushing the envelope with hella fucking anabolics? Like, what's he doing? Because this is absurd, dude. So he actually is, what's cool is we fucking sponsor him through Gorilla Mind. So I don't care what he talks about. He can talk about all the fucking drugs he wants, whenever he wants, be as transparent as he wants. So I'm actually getting to see content that I wouldn't have expected from him. He's talking about the kind of compounds he's throwing in, the dosages he's tapering up to, the fat burners he prefers, the this, the that, like everything. And when I say fat burners, I don't just mean like, the supplement company ones. Like, he talks about his preference of alpha yohimbine versus clenbuterol versus this, that shit I've never heard from him before. And it's very, very insightful to see one of the most aesthetic fucking dudes in the industry, discuss exactly what they're doing. So anyways, in this Instagram story, he basically has a little Q&A and he goes through some of his new developments and whatnot, including the anabolics he has selected to add on to his testosterone base, essentially. So we will be reacting to it, and there's a nice little plug in there too, and I thought, fuck it, I'll add it in there. So you'll see what I mean in a sec.
Yeah, bro, this is a sick sleep supplement from Gorilla Mind, and it's gonna restock because it's sold out because it's so good, and the serving is 4 capsules because the dosage is really good. Make sure you don't miss out, bro.
If you haven't had this shit, it's not just called Gorilla Dream for no reason. Like, the dreams are actually like quite absurd on this shit. Like, quite very, very vivid. People who use this stuff can attest to the fact that if you respond well to it, it definitely moves the needle in terms of sleep quality, REM deep, as well as just like remembering like wild dreams, which is something that not a lot of people actually experience, to be honest. And it can be quite, like, in a good way, it can be great. And I guess in a bad way, it can also be not so good, because some people can't handle, if you have like bad shit going on in your life and you enhance like your dreams, you might end up having like quite vivid nightmares. So just be aware of that too. So definitely take it with a grain of salt and be wary of that. Because I've had situations in the past, like in general, I'm like a pretty happy fucking dude, but there's been situations in the past where, I'm down and out for a certain amount of time. And when I dream like heavy duty, like vivid dreams, when I'm like down, that shit's like exacerbated significantly. So I'm not saying you shouldn't try and get good sleep when you're like have bad shit going on in your life, but just be aware that Gorilla Dream will enhance your dreams either for the better or for the worse. But your sleep quality in general should improve when you use it. And anyways, let's fucking continue. I'm actually surprised how successful of a product it is. It's I thought it would be one of the least selling products, but people fucking love it. So I'm glad to see that it's moving the needle for people's sleep quality, because it's one of the most overlooked components of recovery and muscle growth, to be honest. Do not take this as a band-aid to poor sleep hygiene. You hear me talk about the word sleep hygiene all the time. Hygiene does not equate to take Gorilla Dream and like go to bed. That's not sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene is following a proper circadian rhythm. Not having blue light shining in your eyeballs when you're, at nighttime. Even if your TV or computer or phone, a lot of people are going to be looking at these things within a couple hours of bed, which they shouldn't be if they want to, not inhibit the secretion of melatonin, other kind of things that kind of tell your body that it's time to go to sleep, and have their stress response kind of lowered and engage their parasympathetic rather than have sympathetic being going with, residual stimulants still lingering around, or just like things in your environment that can otherwise induce like a slight fight or flight state. You want to be getting as close to parasympathetic as you can, shifting into that as the night goes on. And, you know, one of the ways to do that too, adding in settings into your electronic, I can't even fucking talk. Settings into your electronic devices that drain the blue light out of it. Like for example, on my desktop, I have something called Flux. Highly recommend you get that app if you don't have it. It drains all the blue light out of your computer screen as the sun sets and it starts to get closer to your bedtime. All the blue light slowly comes out too. It kind of mimics what would otherwise be a circadian rhythm, but from your actual screen. So you're not fucking up your brain and your eyes with blue light at nighttime. You can set the same thing for your phone as well as your TV. So I would highly recommend you do that. And then obviously, you know, other practices like not like backloading a shit ton of your food right before bed, you know, having the right temperature in your bedroom, not having light shining into your bedroom, getting blackout blinds, a lot of stuff like that. This has been a complete side tangent from the actual point of this video, but hopefully it was useful and educational nonetheless, because there are some basic things you can be doing that remove the needle in a big way that will ultimately help significantly enhance your recovery, your muscle growth, but in addition to that, prevent you from getting cancer as easily and shit like that. So anyways, continue.
Bro, I will make a video about this, but I'm using a bit of Primobolan now, bro. Yeah.
So using a bit of Primo and shit is working. Oh my God. Fucking laughing so hard. I have tilted I've literally tilted sideways and tears are coming out of my eyes.
And it's just crazy how these supplements for the muscles are working, but I have to make a full video on this, did you understand? Because these supplements are really crazy working, man.
So Primo, something that otherwise he probably wouldn't have even been able to take advantage of fully when he was using his testosterone plus aromatase inhibitors, because he otherwise had an estrogen essentially equated to 0. And then adding Primo on top, which is something that's going to compete for aromatase, and further exacerbate his like anti-estrogenic issues, something you could take as much advantage of, in my opinion, from an anabolic aspect when you have something that is basically competing for aromatase, not allowing your test base to do what it does. But when you're concurrently using an AI too, and you're essentially undetectable with estradiol, like to a fucking menopausal women essentially, you can imagine that he wouldn't be able to get these same kind of body recomp effects out of the Primo that you otherwise would be able to now that he has normal estrogen levels. Like this is something that it's gonna be interesting to see what happens to his physique soon, because he can actually stay healthy while he does what he does, which, to be honest, seems to have never been a situation that was viable for him, because he otherwise had to constantly nuke his fucking estrogen with Arimidex. So this is his first time using an exogenous anabolic steroid essentially with his test since, who knows, like early 20s or some shit, where he can actually take advantage of the test base fully. So it'll be interesting to see. And it seems like his mood is just like significantly better in general, like given the having proper estrogen is something that facilitates so many benefits, not just from a muscle growth aspect, from a neurological health aspect, emotional health aspect, all this kind of shit. And it just seems like he's in a better headspace now, which is good to see as well. But it will be interesting overall to see how it affects his physique now that he has adequate estrogen too.
Current diet is like 2 meals a day. Really low in food, bro. Not feeling good. Being a moody cunt, bro.
Literally right after I said his emotional state seems better, he's like, I'm a moody cunt.
Just trying to get through the days, improve the shape, and then bump up the calories again.
Well, you would be moody regardless if you had good estrogen or not, if you're eating sub 2,000 calories or whatever it is. Because if you remember, he basically has this approach to dieting, which he outlines in the podcast we did, his aggressive fat loss phases, where he basically crash diets essentially, burns a fuck ton of fat, and then gets back up to maintenance, which for a lot of people, that would sound like a less than ideal strategy. But if you're on exogenous anabolics, you can retain a significant amount more of your tissue. And if you're not somebody who likes to sustain a deficit for long periods of time, you know, there might be an argument to be made from an adherence perspective that if your mental fortitude can handle like a few weeks of like aggressive dieting, and then you can lose the fat you need and then get back up to baseline maintenance, rather than having to draw out your diet for like fucking 12 weeks, or I don't know, what's a more reasonable comparison, like 6 to 7 weeks or something, because obviously you're not gonna get 12 weeks of progress in 3 weeks unless you're on like fucking DNP or some shit. But you know what I mean? For him, obviously it works better for adherence. This is probably not the best approach from a muscle preservation context, performance context. However, some people simply do better with shorter, more aggressive diets than longer drawn out ones where they basically don't wait. They don't have to deal with their the dysregulation of leptin to ghrelin balance and all that kind of shit for as long drawn out periods of time. Rather, they hit it hard, they suffer a little bit, and then they get back up to maintenance rather than dragging out the suffering for longer, slightly more tolerable, but longer durations of time that may ultimately whittle down somebody's fortitude a little bit harder than somebody who might prefer aggressive dieting. So again, not the ideal approach, but it works for him. So if you haven't seen that video, by the way, check out Joesthetics fat loss protocol or whatever the clip was that was from our podcast, or just watch the full podcast. But anyways, here we go.
Brother, be aware that you are reflecting and projecting the way you run around in this world. It will come back to you that way. If you run around like then the people will come back into you this way. If you're running around with like open, just more like, maybe you have a positive reaction when you see people and talk with people. So it's really just, this is all I wanted to tell you. It's just like,
doesn't seem like a moody cunt to me. Seems like he's seems pretty solid right now for being like that low of calories.
Bro, that doesn't mean that I don't also do this sometimes, maybe even on purpose. Because, yeah, if you don't want to talk with people and you just want to stay in your capsule, bro. I'm just telling you real quick, there's a game which I played in my life like thousands of hours, and it's such a great game. And they make a new one, and it's releasing tonight. And I'm gonna be playing a shitload of time, so if you want to join, bro, find your maintenance calories and then increase it slightly. Go to the gym, push it hard, bro. Pump these titties up, man, and get them bigger. But just try to control your calorie intake. That is the only thing that influences how much fat you gain or not. I'm hypersensitive to this. The moment when I ever first started to use test, I immediately felt it, like my itchy nipples burning, and then, so I've always had problems with that. And yeah, you haven't seen it, but it was just a very small, minor one. Now I'm rid of it, I'm happy.
Yeah, so, okay, he's about to tell us how much Primo he uses, but yeah, the Gyno thing, I'll be honest, dude, like, if this is a lifestyle you're gonna be pursuing long-term, where you're gonna be using, like, more than TRT dosages of shit, you're going to be pushing your aromatization to, super physiological levels, you're gonna be, aggravating existing gynecomastia, it's probably worth it to start building up a gyno surgery fund. Like, this is ultimately something that can be taken care of and rectified permanently, to a point where you will never need to use drugs again to attenuate the gyno exacerbation. So why would you not? To me, for the amount of health and quality of life and maybe even muscle building and performance and avoiding injuries that you might be able to take advantage of in the future, getting that shit sorted and just like paying the money for getting that gland cut out rather than, abusing aromatase inhibitors or SERMs for the rest of your life, probably worth saving up for, getting a piggy bank ready for that fucking gyno fund. Obviously for individuals who have natural, pre-existing pubertal gyno and shit like that, it's maybe a different story. Maybe it's so benign you might be able to reduce it to nearly unrecognizable, cosmetically insignificant to the point that you can't even fucking see it levels with something like a raloxifene, which I've talked about before, short burst of it, and it gets rid of it to a point that, holy fuck, I don't even need surgery anymore and I'm no longer insecure about it. However, for individuals who are, like, obviously if you have a giant titty, raloxifene is not gonna do the trick for you, and slamming yourself with AIs until the end of time, not gonna be a sustainable practice, and especially for guys who are on anabolics, the Gyno fund is probably a good idea, unless you are a guy who's just on, basic DRT, or a guy who's just natural or whatever. So for Joe, this was definitely a good move, and I'm glad he got it done, because now everything's gonna be in such a greater state of health now from an organ aspect, now that he can actually let his hormones do what they're supposed to do. Now he's gonna mention how much Primo he uses. Stuff working, oh my God. Fucking sad happy. I'm so happy I shed a tear, thank fuck. Guys, cinnamon, absolutely ridiculous. Boom, sponsored integration. It is Magic Spoon. Again, our favorite high protein, zero sugar cereal company, which will not make you fart from the artificial sweeteners. This is a company that actually flavors their stuff well with natural sweeteners that somehow still taste as good as the heavy duty artificial ones that make you gassy, feel unhealthy in general. I'm not saying they all do that, by the way, but in general, like anytime I've gone to the States and I've curated a significant amount of artificially sweetened products and then I eat them throughout the day, like the high protein stuff specifically, I end up a disaster, bro. I end up a gassy disaster. So anything that's high protein and is not sweetened with like normal sugar, you know, I'm a little bit suspect of always in terms of like seeing how, you know, GI is going to respond. But this is, and in addition, you know, the potential, again, like I don't think there's that much of a deleterious effect to the gut microbiome with like reasonable amounts of sucralose and things of that nature. But in general, like if possible, using things like monk fruit and allulose are superior. You know, things like stevia too, also a good one. These are natural sweeteners that are have less implied issues in the clinical literature, all but, you know, most of these sweeteners are safe anyways. It is just comforting to have something that is naturally flavored and still tastes as good as something that literally has sugar in it, but has zero sugar. So you're looking at something that is technically keto friendly, as well as gluten-free, soy-free, and low carb. The calorie intake is also quite reasonable. It has 140 calories per serving with only 4 net grams of carbs with upwards of 14 grams of protein. So it differs a little bit depending on the cereal. So for example, the Frosted is 13 grams, the peanut butter is 14. My new favorite, by the way, cinnamon, it's 12 grams, but the calorie intake differs a little bit too. Like this one's 140. This one is also 140, but then you'll have ones like the peanut butter, which are a little bit higher, like 170. But yeah, you just tweak and modify accordingly based on, you know, your own individual flavor needs and whatnot and what you can fit into your diet model. But right now, I'll tell you, the cinnamon is absolutely ridiculous, dude. Like I can plow through a box of this like nothing, to a point that I've been saving them for cheat days. And this is the only cereal I eat, and it is the only cereal I've eaten for the past probably few years, at least, to be honest. Like when I eat something that is going to satisfy my sweet tooth, I want something that is also going to concurrently help me hit my protein requirements, not overload my body with sugar to a point that I get ridiculous brain fog and completely ruins my productivity for the day. This cereal realistically checks all the boxes, and this is why I used to buy it myself before this company sponsored me. When I was not a YouTuber, when I was not making videos and getting the opportunity to get sponsored by cereal companies, I would buy the stuff for my own cheat days or for integrating into like a peri-workout nutrition window, having after my workout to get my protein hit in with some like almond milk or some, you know, skim milk or whatever it is that I wanted at the time. Depending on my calorie intake requirements and what I could fit in. But ultimately, this was the only cereal that ever allowed me to be flexible enough that I could eat it on a daily basis if I wanted to, at a quantity that I found to be satisfying, whilst actually helping me get my protein requirements in pretty significantly. Like for 140 calories, getting upwards of 14 grams of protein, like that's not far off of like a scoop of protein powder that is not satisfying really at all, because you're not fucking eating anything. You are just drinking something. Now again, obviously there's ways you can manipulate that and, you know, make protein ice creams and stuff, but very time consuming, bro. When I can just pour this in a bowl of almond milk and just have at her, like it's quite nice and convenient. I get it done, I can get back to work, and I don't have the brain fog associated with giant sugar laden cocktails of disastrous cereal that you would traditionally find in the grocery store. So as far as the flavors, you know, there's the classic bestsellers, the cocoa flavor. We have this is the cocoa one right here. This one is the 140 calories per serving with 13 grams of protein. We also have the one that tastes pretty much like Fruit Loops to me. The fruity flavor is also one of their go-tos. Peanut butter, mentioned before, fucking ridiculous. The frosted flavor, one of the go-tos for sure. This is one of the goat flavors, undoubtedly. But some of the newer ones like blueberry, the cinnamon, bro. Like I mentioned before, this one I will be eating I actually plan on basically like for this ad, I actually have to like eat the cereal on camera, but I am going to plow through the rest of this after I finish recording the ad. So that is being fit into the diet today. As well, they also have a new maple waffle, which sounds pretty ridiculous. I might have to crack it open and have a little bit of that with my cinnamon. And then the cookies and cream, I've had a few boxes of these now. Ridiculous as well. Like, I'm honestly shocked at their consistency to continuously nail it with these products that have zero sugar in it and can actually be fit into a very, very flexible diet, regardless if you are trying to gain muscle in a surplus, if you're at maintenance, or even in a reasonable deficit. You know, with reasonable flexibility, you can fit this stuff in, not just on cheat days, but even on cheat days. It's quite nice when I can actually binge on something that I know is like, I don't feel that guilty when I eat it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm actually like, oh, I ate 3/4 of a box of this stuff and it wasn't that many calories, and I have like 40 to 50 grams of high quality protein in with no sugar. Like, I don't feel that bad about myself, and my brain is not punished either, and I can still get back. And by that, I mean, usually I get ridiculous brain fog if I slam like half a box of Frosted Flakes. So with this stuff, it's like the most conducive cereal to everything I'm all about, and it's the only cereal I eat. So I would definitely recommend checking it out if you're looking for a flexible option, if you're ever having a craving for cereal, or you just want something that satisfies the sweet tooth that can fit into your diet, or if you're not even, you know, diet minded at all. Like, frankly, I still think it's a superior option just from a health context, not burdening your body with significant amounts of sugar, as well as basically being nutrient deficient as hell. Like, when you have a giant bowl of cereal, you're going to be getting what, trace amounts of protein, tons of sugar, some fat, and it's just going to be terrible for your body composition in general, as well as your health metrics. Because again, like, how conducive is it to being health-minded when you are burdening your body with like the most disproportionately bad version, like ratio of nutrients possible? It's just like all fucking sugar and like nothing useful whatsoever. So anyways, for me, this is the closest thing I get to, you know, those childhood cereals that you know, knew and loved as a kid, like the Frosted. Like, this stuff is close, dude. Like, very close, given that it has zero sugar, the calorie intake is reasonable, the protein is high, and it's sweetened with monk fruit and allulose rather than, you know, like a heavy duty bomb of sucralose. So for me, I've always been super impressed with their like formulations, if you want to call it, you know, however they make this stuff. And I would definitely highly recommend it. This is why I consistently do integrations with them. I love their stuff, and I'm always happy to promote them when they want to feature on the channel and, you know, help give back to the channel by supporting me, compensating me for doing these ad reads, and then also being able to introduce a product to you guys that I actually use myself and like. So it's a win-win. Help support me, help support the channel. So if you want to help support MPMD as well as a good company that I stand behind, check out Magic Spoon. You can build your own variety box, which is basically mixing and matching any of the flavors that you want and getting 4 of them sent to you. You can do the traditional value pack, which has like their main best sellers, but I would definitely recommend mixing it up. And like the cinnamon, dude, I've mentioned it like 5 times now. You gotta try. If you like cinnamon buns or anything like that, like, you gotta try the cinnamon. Add it into your pack of 4, your variety box for sure. Use code Derek for $5 off, and you can use the link in the description to get sent to the landing page for the More Plates, More Dates guys, and it'll be, you know, it should be automatically applied, but if it's not, just use code Derek at checkout for $5 off. And they have a 100% money back guarantee. They call it a happiness guarantee. If you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So anyways, always appreciate you guys helping to give back to me to help continue to put out content and whatnot. And stoked to have companies on board who want to support the growth of the channel too, and help me put out products that I actually believe in. You know, I only promote shit that I actually truly use or believe is like highly useful for people with similar interests to me, or I just think are exceptional. And as you see by the limited amount of integrations I do and the consistency of the companies that I kind of talk about. So anyways, like I said, use the code Derek, save $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/Derek. Also, for my Canadian and British fans, Magic Spoon is now shipping to Canada and the UK. So thank you to Magic Spoon for sponsoring this video and getting back now to our regularly scheduled programming.
2 cc's, bro. It's technically 100 mg each cc, but inside is like 1.2, so it would accumulate up probably to 250, bro. That's it, man. And I'm telling you, that shit's working, man.
Yeah, so I forget who it was that said that the Pharma Primo ampules are like overfilled slightly. Maybe it was Vigorous Steve who said something like that. I could be totally wrong, so don't take what I just said with a grain of salt, because I might be putting words in his mouth, but I was pretty sure the Rimabolin amps that are pharma grade are like slightly overfilled or something. So maybe he is, like pushing 200 to 250 milligrams, somewhere around there per week. Is that going to produce a significant amount of muscle growth? It's not going to be like it definitely fucking helps. Like Primo, to be honest, from an anabolics aspect, is probably the most refined adjunct anabolic you can add on to your test base, in my opinion. Like from a side effect context, from how benign it is and innocuous it is on biomarkers, the least detriment to so many different things in the body, doesn't have significant satellite interaction with progesterone receptors, have like weird interactions with libido and like your fucking emotional state and blood pressure dysregulation. The phlebotic kind of actions are pretty significant though. Like it can enhance your hematology profile quite profoundly. However, this is obviously manageable with, lifestyle changes, dietary manipulation, supplementation perhaps, therapeutic phlebotomy if warranted. Obviously not ideal though, but if needed. But anyways, like 250 milligrams, like Primobola, in my opinion, is the most refined adjunct anabolic to add to a test base. Like if it wasn't for the hair loss aspect of it, that would be the fucking go-to for everyone. Obviously, the majority of people though I don't know about the majority of people, but people who prefer to, prioritize like actual, like the best overall anabolic agent, despite the less tolerated, how it's less well tolerated than something like an androlone on hair, Primobolan is the most, in my opinion, safe anabolic to be adding alongside as your like second adjunct to drive protein accretion. Like if you're gonna have a test base at whatever dosage you can tolerate from an estrogen management context, and then you add in an adjunct anabolic to drive protein expression, like Primobolan is fucking money, dude. 250 milligrams for him though, like is he growing significantly? Not really. However, he is recomping and getting back a lot of that lost size. But again, it's not new tissue. So when you look at this before and after, it looks so dramatic and people are like, wow, like the fucking Primo's working so well, or like, oh, he must be using like grams of shit. Like in reality, he looked like this a few months ago. If not, this is something that he perpetually walks around at, and he claims it was at lower dosages before. So, the Primobolan, I would expect, is just getting him to here faster, as well as his very, very strict adherence to diet and cardio. The guy's a fucking robot when it comes to that stuff. So I'm not surprised he got back to here very quickly. And to be honest, a lot of this picture is just lighting and dietary manipulation that's gonna make you more bloated and soft looking, and just trying to look like just showing clear as day the worst case scenario. This picture here is working out, fucking freshly shaven perhaps, slightly more tanned maybe even, dialed in, fucking leaner, slightly water depleted perhaps too. He looks like he just sweated a shit ton. He just worked out. Everything is, brought to the surface. He's added in the Primobolan, which is going to have some cosmetic effect as well on top of his testosterone. Obviously the difference here is not so stark that it's like, wow, this guy gained like 10 to 20 pounds of muscle in 2 months. Like, how'd you do it? Like reality, a lot of this is just temporary size that he's getting back, intramuscular fullness, him getting back on diet, getting rid of some of the fluff that he accumulated, but it's basically the same physique, believe it or not, just with more anabolics in the equation a little bit, but mostly diet, adherence to it, cardio, training, etc. All the pop is back to the muscle, or it's getting there at least. He mentioned before how his bicep is like way softer than the other one still, but just like everything is, he wasn't that far off, to be honest. And when you look at other pictures, he still had a pretty fucking nailed killer physique even when he was at his worst. And this is like showing it in the worst possible lighting and representation of what he looked like to make it look as dramatic of a before and after as possible. But he was not like that bad in this situation although it looks quite, you know, much different. Like, you'd be surprised if he here was able to train and get under the same downlighting and flex his fucking ass off after getting a pump, you'd be surprised how much closer he is to this than he looks like here. But anyways, that's not to take away from anything he's doing. I just think a lot of people are going to see this and be like, wow, he's clearly fucking saucing his brains out, which I don't think is the case. I think he's definitely pushing the limits on what he's doing, and he's being transparent about it, which is cool. But I mean, like, to make these changes, a lot of it is just muscle memory. It's not a result of added new tissue or something like that. Is basically what I'm trying to say.
Heavily. Just that you understand, there's natural athletes, they look absolutely insane without taking anything, getting super shredded and dry and everything. So I always tell myself this, like, bruh, no. People doing it without anything, you gotta do it with the least possible.
Yeah, so, he's talking about minimum effective dose, which is something I preach and whatnot, but like, overall, he's on like half a gram of shit, I would say, per week if you factor in his test, which, as far as I know, is like slightly super physiological. He has the Primo at 200 to 250. He's also on a little bit of GH. I don't know if he's still using it, but he was doing it for, recovering from his bicep tear. Then he also has peptides in the mix too. Are those still in the picture? I'm not sure, but like cumulatively, he's on like a modest little mini blast essentially, and it's understandable that like why he's recomping so fast. It's basically just coming back from this injury. I don't think this is a result of some deterioration of his physique and then gaining muscle back that he had lost. Like, rather, all this shit was just dormant essentially. When you bank up myonuclei, it's there for fucking years, dude. So it's not a surprise when you see these individuals downsize when they stop going to the gym, stop taking as much gear perhaps. With Joe's case, he actually increased his test to help with recovery, for what I remember. But individuals who go off diet, stop training, they lose, the pop to the muscle. They start to, glaze over with smoothness from the fat and water they might be accumulating from, having a more lax diet or whatever it is. These individuals get back like pretty fucking quick. Like, even Jeremy Buendia, that guy like mutated his physique. Like, he's on a blast for sure. It's not fucking HRT like he sort of implies in his shit. And I made a video on that too, and apparently he fucking blocked me after. But that was an example of a guy who like mutated extremely quickly. I don't think it was a result of using a fuck ton of shit. Like, he definitely had a decent amount in the equation, and it was not HRT whatsoever. But it's not like he gained new tissue. This was just like old existing dormant muscle, like ready to explode, that had totally shrunk down from being entirely inactive essentially and eating like shit, probably. So, and probably taking less drugs too, when he was just sitting there doing basically nothing. But anyways, with Joe, a bit of a different, like, toned down situation from that, but similar nonetheless.
Bro, I think it actually doesn't matter. If there's something and you have to cut it out, you have to cut it out anyways. I even believe it's better if it's still small. Otherwise, there's this huge tissue below it that stretches your skin and all that, and you just, if you can sort that problem early, do it.
Okay, so that was it. Yeah, I definitely agree with the gyno sentiments he just shared. Like, long term, that would have been a detriment to his health, in my opinion. If not, already in the short term with some of the, emotional consequences and whatnot, as well as even retaining fucking information and memory formation. Like, that kind of shit is going to be significantly hindered when you are estrogen deprived. Like, if you've ever taken letrozole and crushed your estrogen, you'll know what I mean when I say that low estrogen fucking sucks. It's like, life sucks. Everything's black and white. Your dick is dysfunctional. It literally exists just to urinate, and it's otherwise just a flaccid fucking useless piece of skin hanging, a fucking appendage of uselessness that just urinates hanging from your body. I'm trying to elaborate on a flaccid, useless dick that has no estrogen. But yeah, so that would be definitely something to look into if you are gyno prone. Definitely getting the gyno fund saved up. But ultimately, what else is he doing, by the way? Something I've been waiting to see is his video on alpha yohimbine, because I was very surprised and glad to hear that his primary fat burner of choice is actually alpha yohimbine, ribosine, which is something that I've sold through Gorilla Mind for a while now because I believed in this alpha-2 adrenergic receptor antagonist so strongly. Like, I actually very, very much like it for its effects on not just fat mobilization, fat loss, etc., but also appetite suppression, the energy it gives that is through a different vector than traditional, like caffeine or other stimulants and whatnot. It can be a very, very potent additive, in my opinion, too, to other fat burning agents. And this is why it is one of the primary drivers of Alpha 2 AM, which is our fat burning supplement through Gorilla Mind. The stimulant based one, by the way, this product basically doubles as a like pre-workout if you wanted to. Like the guys who think that the stim junkies who use Gorilla Mode, who don't think Gorilla Mode is strong enough because it doesn't have, the heavy hitting stims that you would otherwise need to feel something if you're like totally desensitized to like 350 to 400 milligrams of caffeine plus other shit. Like those people do exist and they need shit like DMAA, DMHA just to fucking feel something, just to feel their fucking balls get tingled a little bit. That's where something like this might come into play. This product is no holds barred adrenaline, hence the name Alpha 2 AM. This is the main vector of performance is Alpha 2 adrenergic receptor antagonism with the full dose of rauwolstein. Then we also have the very potent isopropyl-norepinephrine, theophylline with a fat dose of caffeine and phenethyl dimethylamine citrate, plus other fat burning agents that make this product essentially a stim fiend, a stim junkie pre/fat burner hybrid product, which you could otherwise use. Like if you're a stim fiend, you otherwise need to get like heavy duty shit just to feel something. You could use this with nitric and have a very potent like stim junkie pre. Definitely something to think about, which is kind of a side tangent from what I wanted to talk about, which was the rauwolstein, because Joe mentioned in our podcast his favorite fat burner was yohimbine. And then when he tried alpha yohimbine, that's like the next generation big brother sort of more well-tolerated, better side effect profile, doesn't make you feel as hypoglycemic and like you're gonna fucking have a panic attack. This shit is just more potent milligram for milligram and less side effect ridden. It's just a superior product altogether. And I'm very happy to know this guy is actually using it to facilitate his fat loss endeavors and help, keep his appetite down, as well as enhance sexual function. A lot of people don't realize that yohimbine and alpha yohimbine are very, very useful in the bedroom. Something that you otherwise wouldn't. Why the fuck would a stimulant, which is traditionally vasoconstrictive, be helpful of your dick? Look into it. It's actually quite interesting. So I would definitely recommend alpha yohimbine for fasted cardio. That's what Joe uses. I asked before, I was like, do you use Clen or like other shit? Like, what do you do? Obviously he uses GH2 for his recovery. I don't know if he's still leveraging it, but that would be something that could be used for fasted cardio. One of the things people often argue about is fasted cardio better than fed. And in naturals, you'll see the data implying it makes no fucking difference. And then people will just extrapolate that and think that, okay, it makes no difference at all for everyone, when in reality, for guys who leverage pharmacology, fasted cardio is superior. There are things you could do during fasted cardio that make it superior to fed cardio, like using GH, like using certain products like Alpha 2 adrenergic receptor antagonists. A lot of different things can leverage disproportionate amounts of lipolysis that could otherwise be useful in a fasted state that you otherwise might not be able to manipulate to the same extent as a natural. Mobilizing fatty acids and actually using them is not as easy without pharmacology in the picture. So anyways, he might be using GH still. I don't know for sure, but I do know he's using this, and he actually prefers it to Clen, which was fucking baffling and cool to me, because this is a very slept on product in my opinion, and I think more people should know about it. This is almost like a side fucking ad for rauwolstein. I would definitely recommend you take a look at it if you have not. And I'm awaiting Joe's video on talking about his experience with it, because it's something that a lot of people don't know. He used yohimbine extensively before he was even with Gorilla Mind, and now I was able to introduce him to alpha yohimbine, which is the superior big brother product, and it's working. He seems to like it a lot, and I'm glad, because this is my preferred modality of hitting that receptor, or antagonizing it, I should say, because yohimbine makes me feel like a hypoglycemic disaster. Like I can't even fucking train when it's in the picture. So like if you ever use yohimbine, the kind of like panic attack type feeling it can induce. Not as prevalent with this product, and more potent fat burning with this product too. So definitely worth checking out. rauwolstein on the Gorilla Mind site. But anyways, ultimately the Joe Lindner body recomp is it a result of, like, what is it? Like, how the fuck did he do it? Ultimately, it's just muscle memory. And I think a lot of you guys probably would have guessed that anyways. A lot of this is just lighting, angles, manipulation of the situation. being softer, you know, not having a pump, not being in the proper lighting, not flexing, trying to look as bad as possible. But ultimately, like, he didn't make a very impressive transformation. You got to give him the kudos for that. The guy has one of the most insane work ethics in the industry. The guy's a fucking robot when it comes to dieting and training and nutrition. So it's not surprising to me that he was able to get back here so fucking quick with, you know, a little splash of fucking anabolics, some fat burners, a bit of GH maybe, but mainly the fucking diet and the cardio, and obviously the anabolics to retain the tissue in the aggressive diet. But ultimately, the adherence to this diet is what is getting him these results. And it's pretty wild to see, because not too long ago, this was him in, you know, just getting out of the hospital with his fucking atrophied bicep and sitting on getting his glands cut out and just chilling, you know, becoming soft and shit. And then, you know, shortly thereafter, he's fucking dicey again, bro, and back to the aesthetic game and killing it. Almost didn't miss a beat, bro. And now he has no gyno. Fucking awesome. So hopefully he gets to stay healthy from now on. No more injuries, adequate estrogen, adequate dick function, no longer dealing with ED, because that was the thing we talked about too. Dick function with low estrogen, not ideal, bro. Check out our podcast. I highly recommend you do for some of the deep dives into his fat loss protocols, his diet, how he adheres to these steep deficits, shit like that we discuss in detail, and it's definitely worth checking out. I think it was the first time he's ever talked about pharmacology like openly on a podcast, so I was glad I was able to bring that out there, because this guy is otherwise one of the most inspiring physiques to the younger generation, in my opinion. Like, he's one of the most highly looked up to, you know, modern day aesthetic guys. Like, back in the day, we had the, you know, the Sergi Constants, the Ulysses, the Simeon Pandas. Like, Joe is like the modern day fucking like Sergi kind of guy, in my opinion. So anyways, not that Sergi is like irrelevant or something, like he's still sick, but you know what I mean? He's like, you know, for guys in their 20s and like teenagers who look up to guys in their 20s and shit, and just like a guy who's more, I don't know, like I think he's just like in the fucking like mainstream fitness shit right now, and people are definitely noticing his physique and, you know, really dig the look, and, you know, his work ethic is definitely, does not go unnoticed, because this guy gets more shredded and stays more shredded than everybody out there pretty much. So that's mainly what I'm trying to say. So anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplacemordates.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplacemordates, Facebook, Snapchat, BitChute, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts. I said BitChute by accident, but do not follow me there, bro. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below, notably Gorilla Mind, nootropic formulas, Gorilla Mode, pre-workout formulas. I designed myself from scratch. I do recommend you check out Raoul's Sign if you have not used it. You can add it into a pre-workout too if you want to get a bit more urgency, get a bit more of that, like, I want to like put my head through the wall feeling. It is a adrenaline inducing stimulant though, so keep that in mind. But it's also quite useful in a fasted cardio aspect. Definitely recommend it for that, as well as for the bedroom, believe it or not. Actually quite useful for that as well. Or if you want the broad spectrum, like stim bomb fucking fat burner that has Raoul's Sign in it at the same dose, plus a myriad of other potent, heavy hitting, drive your head through the wall stims, that can double as a pre-workout for the stim junkies out there. Check out Alpha 2 AM. It is entirely focused on maxing out adrenaline, essentially, using things like a potent dose of isopropyl norepinephrine. This is the kind of shit that will make you feel like cracked out, to be honest. So honestly, not my favorite feeling. That's why I prefer Gorilla Mode, but some people need this shit and prefer it. And from a fat loss context, some of the ingredients in here are definitely tailored towards lipolysis and, you know, actually getting accelerated fat loss outcomes, as well as killing appetite, as well as crushing your appetite. What did I say? Accelerating fat loss, increasing your adherence to your diet. And I feel like I said the same thing twice. I'm like, I shouldn't be filming right now. It's way too fucking late. But in addition to accelerating your fat loss and crushing your appetite, just overall being, all of the ingredients are tailored towards either increasing like body temperature and or heart rate and or energy and or appetite suppression. Like basically the vectors of performance are mainly like hyperstimulation slash lipolysis slash increasing your metabolism as much as physically as possible with a over-the-counter supplement with ingredients that hit hard, and you definitely feel that sense of urgency when you use it. And but ultimately it enhances adherence to your diet and allows it to be more seamless whilst providing the energy to keep your NEAT up and helping you to induce that lipolysis in a fasted state and or whatever, vector you want to deploy it in a pre-workout context, in a fasted cardio context, whatever it is. Overall, it has a bunch of different multifaceted purposes, and it doubles as a stim junkie pre-workout with nitric quite nicely. So anyways, definitely recommend you check it out. Very slept on products. I think a lot of people don't even understand how they work. So I'm glad I get an opportunity to touch on them and actually discuss the fucking most shredded guy in the industry, the king of aesthetics basically, and knowing that he uses our stuff. Like even before he's sponsored by us, huge fan of this product. Great to fucking be able to get behind it and actually say some nice shit about it, because it's a very, very underappreciated product in my opinion. So anyways, check it out as well as anything else I'm associated with. It is all in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.